You're about to watch a Trains Newswire video. If you enjoy what you see, consider watching some of our other full-length videos. Hotspots, Horseshoe Curve, Tehachapi, Chicago Racetrack, and more. Locomotive, the video companion to our best-selling special issue. And a special collection from documentary producer Rich Luckin. All these and more are available from our website, kalmbachhobbystore.com. Good morning, Trains Nation. Welcome to another episode of Trains Newswire Roundup. I am your loyal host, Steve Sweeney. Glad you could join us today, Friday, July 27th, 2018, all day until midnight. That's right. We want to talk first about the strike, the pedestrian strike, or the trespasser strike, however you want to call it, of a woman who was too close to the tracks north of Denver, Colorado last Saturday. She was hit and killed by Union Pacific 484-844, which is traveling at speed south to Denver. Police report out, or at least a news report out from the Denver Post today, saying that identifies the woman as a 56-year-old from the Denver area. Full story on Newswire. We have several stories this week talking about the strike itself, what it means for the steam tourist industry, and what mainline excursion groups are doing about it. Also some comments from Union Pacific and from Operation Lifesaver. Check out several stories this week on Newswire. In steam news, South Africa's Red Devil 484 steam locomotive is back in operation. The Red Devil, if you're not familiar with it, there's a picture of it on Newswire with the story. The Red Devil is a locomotive that was built in the 1950s in Germany, in West Germany, and was exported to South Africa for general service. In the 1980s, they decided that it should be supercharged and turbocharged with some new designs and new thoughts to make it more efficient, use less water, use less fuel. And it still exists today, so good news there. Durango and Silverton, a second mudslide has taken out the famed tourist road in southwestern Colorado. This one is a little bit more serious. We'll have pictures of this later today on Newswire that were provided to us by the Durango and Silverton. The first mudslide about a week and a half ago just covered some of the tracks. They were able to scrape that out in a couple of days and get the road back in service, get the trains back in service. But this one actually has done quite a bit of destruction. There are some tracks just hanging in the air. So we'll be following that for you. A story from Justin Franz. Preservation story in Brazil. Brazilian rail fans working with a railroad company have saved a GE export locomotive, a C30-7. It will be preserved in Brazil, and there's a neat story with that, along with a photo. This was the story that, if you remember, several months ago, they were trucking the locomotive from one point in Brazil to another, and they stopped at a gas station to fill it up before they got to their endpoint so that they would have some fuel to switch it on the tracks and get it into place. Great story from Justin Franz here. In other business and industry news, Canadian National named JJ, or Jean-Jacques Grouest, as permanent CEO and president of Canadian National. JJ was the chief marketing officer for several years and takes the helm after a period of instability at the railroad where they were having certain bottlenecks and traffic jams. Several stories from Bill Stevens this week on CN and Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern, their earnings calls and what they're doing in operations. In the Canadian National earnings call earlier this week, Chief Operating Officer Mike Corey says that double tracking the main line, specifically in Western Canada between Edmonton and Winnipeg, is a forever goal. I would really have liked to have heard this one myself, but we've got a full story from Bill Stevens in which Mike Corey is talking about basically it's the last thing he's going to do before he dies is double track the main line. Read the full story online. Norfolk Southern has its own version of the "why can't we be more like CSX" from analysts. You'll remember last week Brian and I talked about Union Pacific and how analysts were pegging the railroad and its leaders about why can't they lower their operating ratio and why can't they make more profit and why can't they be more like CSX. A bevy of financial analysts did the same thing to Norfolk Southern this week, and the typically unflappable executives there said in about so many words, there's more than one way to run a railroad, and we're doing just fine, thank you. Shortened Newswire today, so we'll leave you with one thought. If you're in the Chicagoland area and you wanted to do something different for your hotel stay, you might want to consider a Pullman in the western suburbs. Yes, a Pullman standard car. This is now on Airbnb. It's a accommodation site where you can rent out a room in someone's house or someone's apartment for a night or up to a week perhaps. And this one was actually used by Presidents Harding, and Wilson. The family has a 4-bedroom Pullman on their own property in the western suburbs, and it's on Newswire with a link to the Airbnb site. Check out these stories and more from Trains Newswire, trainsmag.com. Have a safe weekend, guys.